We are back on Movie Mainline with another Mainline memory, and we are here today with Aaron Kesller. Is it Kesller? Is that how you say it?
Correct.
Awesome. And I guess we'll just start by letting Aaron tell us a little bit about how he is tangentially related or brought into the Movie Mainline orbit. How do you know anybody from this group?
That's a great story that I will not be telling on the air or on your podcast. I met Eric the same night I met Anderson Cowan in Denver. I drove out to Denver. We had some drinks. We partied a little. We had a good time. That was an interesting night.
Was that when Anderson was touring Groupers? Okay, cool. Yeah. Go for it.
I happened to be in Omaha, and I decided, I take a couple extra days off and drive from Omaha to Denver because that can't be that far. Well, it was like 10 hours more, and I live in Wisconsin, so it was kind of a fun drive. And I went out and we went out for a few drinks. I hung out with Jonathan Judge, went back to Jonathan Judge's house, who's an artist in Denver, who Anderson knew, who's a friend of one of his shows. And he lived above a bathhouse, which I didn't know was a thing anymore because I live in Madison and we don't have bathhouses. And I'll leave it at that.
Gotcha.
But yeah, Anderson and Eric and I have been texting back and forth pretty much since Santa Cruz, because I flew out to Santa Cruz to hang out with them when he was still the last grouper showing. And we had a good time, and Eric and I have bonded since. I brought Eric into a writer's group I am part of where we write and critique each other's work, and I am the weakest of the group, and a few others have gone or are trying to go on to other things. And so Eric and I have really bonded since then. And I'd like to, he wants to make some stuff, and I want to help him make some stuff.
Very good. I think a lot of us got brought in either through Film Vault and or Cinematics and Anderson and all that. I went and saw Anderson's showing in Seattle because I lived in the Seattle area most of my life, but now I live in Alabama. Another long story. God, hell, yeah, I know, right?
What?
I am probably the most liberal person in Alabama. I don't know. There's a few of us here, I guess.
Sure.
But I was living in Alabama, but I was back at home visiting, and I got there and just happened to be there when he was doing his groupers screening. So I saw his screening in Seattle. So that's cool too, for sure. So what is one or more?
I got one for you.
All right, go for it.
So I tend to fall into producer roles and AD roles on set. And as a producer, I try and meet the people in my area who do film. And there are a few films that get made out of Madison. We're not too far from Chicago, about an hour and a half out, maybe two. And a lot of stuff there in Milwaukee. Well, one night, an independent film was being shown at local cinema. And I knew there'd be a couple of people there I kind of wanted to get to know or at least meet because they had done some work. And I found myself at the probably world premiere of Space Babes in Outer Space.
Cool. I don't think I've seen Space Babes in Outer Space, and I've seen a lot of movies like that. So
yeah, it's definitely one of those movies where they crowdfunded. They got, they asked for 10, they got 38K, and they made a movie, and it made it. And sometimes I can handle bad movies, sometimes I can't. But I knew that, I had to sit through this movie because I got there, and the guy that had introduced me to everybody was there, and I felt like obligated. And so we leave the theater. This movie goes for, I don't know. It felt like 3 hours. It's one of those.
It was like 85 minutes or something.
It probably was 85 minutes. Man, it felt like 3 hours.
Right.
It was bad. I can handle bad, but I don't like bad being made for the sake of being bad, if that makes sense.
Right. No, I get that. You don't want it. Ed Wood is not bad for the sake of being bad.
That's correct.
He legitimately thinks he's making awesome, important movies.
Yes.
Those
If it's
work.
made in earnest, if it was a real effort, I accept that. Like I love those movies,
Right.
and being in independent film, I can see how that stuff happens. I can see people pouring their guts into things, and you can tell, like, okay, this probably isn't going to be the greatest thing on earth, but I'm here to support that person, or feed this crew, or bring this crew together,
Sure.
and get this thing made, no matter if I like it or not creatively. And I support that. But if somebody is out to let's make this movie bad, it's never sat well with me. I don't know why. I'm a bit of a contrarian, so maybe that's why. So I've never seen a Sharknado. I avoid some of those.
Is it kind of like movie hipsterism?
Ooh, don't say that.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of like that. It's like trying to be kitschy and trying to be
It is
trying to be something not genuine and making it like, hey, isn't this awesome what we're doing here? Isn't this cool? Wink, wink. I think that's why I don't like it. So
yeah. And so this is one of those movies. And, it was definitely a movie that was attempting to be a TNA movie. I'm not gonna sugar. I'm trying my best to keep this PG.
The title doesn't tell me that, though. Space Babes in
Space Babes in Outer Space. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
first of all, no. You put space twice in the title?
Yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah.
That's like rhyming. That's like rhyming in a song with the same word in the next line. That's
right.
Bullshit.
I'm from a producer's perspective, I'm jealous of these people because they've crowdfunded 2 or 3 movies, and they're in Indiana, and we're giving them press right now. Even if one person of whoever watches this goes out and seeks this film out, I think you can find it. Anyway, it's long story short. I made a good friend that night who made a movie that I will plug. Main Street Meats. It can be found on Prime Video. It can be found on Tubi. It took him 7 years to make it.
Now, is that meats like you cut a
like
piece
Butcher.
of meat? Okay.
Yes. This is a throwback homage type movie. You definitely can feel a little Motel Hell. You can definitely feel some of those feelings in this movie.
Which I have seen. I know what Motel Hell is, yes.
I exposed my daughter to it 2 weeks ago.
You do what you got to do.
Well, since quarantine, we've been doing a lot of that. And for some reason, I found myself going through all the Silent Night, Deadly Nights. Wow.
Part 2. That's
Garbage Day.
That's a movie right there, I tell you.
I keep taunting my son with that clip every time it is Garbage Day. He doesn't get it. I find it hilarious.
For me, I like go around and like do the old Red Letter Media always does it too. Like do the oh my god, and my kids like, what are you talking about, Dad? And I finally show them the clip. They're like, Dad, please no.
Yeah.
Anyway, move along.
Those are guys I actually like to meet because they're not too far away. But I have friends of mine have gotten them on their shows. I just haven't had a reason to reach out to them yet. I don't want to just meet them for the sake of meeting them. I want to, But it's interesting. You go to those things, you sit through it, you smell everybody's hammered in the theater, laughing at everything. I find myself getting up a lot and leaving the theater because I feel like I don't like a lot of things anymore, and I feel like the more you watch film, the more selective you get, or a lot of people do. And I'm definitely one of those people. So there's a lot I don't like, and I feel like a jerk. So,
well, but I mean, okay, I'll pile in on this because I've seen tons of movies. Like I'm trying to do this little challenge that we're doing in cinematics, which is like the 500.
You guys are insane, insane. I thought about that the first time he said that, and I went, no way.
I'm at 210, I think.
Oh, well, I mean, you'll hit.
I'm in the ballpark, but I'm not pushing myself. And I also do little things like give myself little deals. Like if I watch a 3-hour movie, I figure I can count a short as a movie because that's 2 movies worth of time I'm spending there.
How many repeats of those 200s? How many of those 200 movies have you seen before?
Probably 5%, maybe.
Wow.
I don't, not many.
And I'm not giving away a show, but of the 200 you've seen, what's the most surprise you've had? You must have had one that you were like, I did not expect this.
That's a tough one. I've had a few. I'm trying to think of the ones that have really hit me out of the blue. Because a lot of times the ones that I end up liking are ones that I thought I was going to like or I haven't seen. I know I just never got around to watching them kind of movies. I guess one that kind of hit me recently that I really loved was, and it's not usually my kind of movie, was The Portrait of a Lady on Fire. I really ended up loving that movie. And I really thought it was going to be a huge bore. And it would be for a lot of people probably too. It would be a huge bore for a lot of people.
Sure.
But for me, it kind of hit me. But I can really go trash and love it and give it 5 stars. And I can go, artsy and love it and give it 5 stars. So I guess I don't have a good answer for you on that one.
As I'm shown on camera, I'm a large dude. And I always compare trashy movies, those trashy movies to things like people just assume like I like good food, but I also like some bad food. So like Taco Bell in particular, I'll use that as an example. Taco Bell sometimes is the greatest food you can get. Other times it's the worst. And it's 2 different level playing fields when you start talking about these films. Like, I'm not going to compare a movie like, let's just grab one out of the air. I just watched the 45th anniversary 4K of Jaws.
Sure.
I can't compare that to a movie like Night of the Creeps. I just looked up. There's a poster. But I love them both in different ways. And so.
Yes. And I love those both too. I agree with you. No, I know what you're saying. So, but the difference is knowing what good trash is and knowing what crap trash is. I mean, of course, that is a judgment call, but I think there is something to be said. I mean, I could say Night of the Creeps, Return of the Living Dead. I could say those kind of, Reanimator. It's, arguably not great art, although to me it is great art. It's just a different kind of great art. It's producing, like you said, producing that great, big, useless taco, but doing it in a way that's awesome. Or creating some fancy, beautiful, culinary treat, I suppose, and that's going to be your high-end, I don't know, Kubrick or something, whatever is your taste. I mean, behind me right now, what do I got? I've got probably.
I see The Wicker Man.
Yeah, I got The Wicker Man, but I've also got like Evil Dead up there, and who knows?
I see Ash up on the top shelf. I never opened mine. It's over here.
See, I open my toys. I don't care. They might be worth money, but whatever. I'm gonna have fun with them. Anyway,
sorry.
So I think we're on a good conversation here. I think what I would like to do is, what is a couple or 3, and I'll throw in some of my thoughts of really good bad movies. Now we're talking not trash, but the genuinely made movies that are really bad but awesome.
You put me on the spot, and I should have been prepared for this.
I know I have a few that I had a couple from last year that I really enjoyed that were in that kind of category. I can think of an old one I saw recently too. Well, the old one I saw recently that I loved, and I had never seen it. Somehow I got around to it, and I talked about it on Movie Mainline, was Psychomania. I had never seen Psychomania before, and I loved the hell out of that movie. I don't know if you've ever seen Psychomania. Death Wheelers, Psychomania.
No, I haven't, but I'm familiar with that genre. I have a couple, and I don't know if they're trash, and they are from the last couple of years. And it sounds real cliche to mention the Nicolas Cage movies he put out in the last 2 years, but I've thoroughly, really, and I don't think it's trash. So I'm not going to say Mandy, because I really don't think it's
Mandy's
trash.
Not trash. That was top 3 of my year that year. I love it.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it is. It's like Panos, that guy, man, he makes some interesting films.
Panos Cosmatos.
Yes. I always say it wrong, so I wasn't going to say it. And his dad is an interesting fellow. That's all I.
He did Red Dawn?
No, that's Milius.
That's Milos. What did Cosmatos do?
Cobra. Tombstone.
Yes, thank you.
Those are the big ones.
Yeah,
I'm missing one, but those are the big ones that people think of.
And also Beyond the Black Rainbow, or
Beyond the Black Rainbow. Yeah, you can find it on Shudder, I think. Still there?
I believe that's true. I saw it before it was on Shudder. I don't know how I ended up watching it, but I watched that when it came out.
Yeah,
because it looked cool, and it was.
It is cool. I feel like I don't see any good trashy movies that are new, and I always go back to the old stuff, things that you know, and Night of the Creeps is really on my head because I just watched it about 3 nights ago with my daughter.
I love that
But
movie.
that movie is I really love that movie, and it's trashy.
Mm-hmm.
And Tom Atkins is great, and
Yeah.
so we watched that, and you've mentioned a bunch that I watched recently. We're stuck in quarantine, so my daughter has asked to watch some movies. She's about 16. Some of the movies I'm not super comfortable showing her. Movies like Shivers, which always creeps me out, but maybe didn't age that well. I don't think it aged very well, but Cronenberg movies, body horror in particular, have always not been my jam unless it's a Cronenberg, and then I'm still uncomfortable. You know what I mean?
Society.
I can't watch it. I have watched it. I can't watch it again. Is it Usna? Brian Usna made that? Yeah. So Stuart Gordon and him did Reanimator, and then he goes on to make this movie. And I was shocked when I was going through the Silent Night, Deadly Night collection of trash to get to the fourth one to go, what's going on here? And then I looked at the director, and Usna had taken over the series. And that explains why that one got, I don't know, Clint Howard sex scene. I don't know what he was thinking.
Clint Howard. I don't think I've seen number 4. I know I've made it through the first one all the way. The second one I've seen at least all together in parts, but I don't think I've ever seen beyond part 2.
Years ago, 8 years ago, the first one I wanted my daughter was about 8, 9. She was like, I really want to watch a horror movie, and somehow it must have been about Christmas. I said, oh, we should watch Silent Night, Deadly Night. Forgetting about all the rape. Forgetting about...
That's the problem when you show your kids movies. I did this recently. I've been watching movies with my kids too, and I got like, what's in this one? Okay, we're going to watch Total Recall. Maybe?
I think it makes... Now, she's 16. She's exposed. She's
whatever, yeah.
I'm more uncomfortable watching that stuff than she is. I'm like, there's a lot of weird stuff happening here, and but she seems to enjoy it. And so we watched Shivers, we watched Reanimator, we watched Night of the Creeps. I've shown her Silent Night, Deadly Night, and there's a few others that we've hit. Nothing, Motel Hell, just some of the classics. Oh, Basket Case, of course. That's a movie I love. I love that movie, and that's trashy. And so I just can't think of anything in the last couple of years that was real trashy that I enjoyed. Now,
I can think of a couple I saw last year that weren't horror, but kind of hit some of those notes. Were Serenity? Have you ever seen Serenity? The weird, not the one that was last year with Matthew McConaughey.
Yep, I know what you're talking about. So what I found out, and I don't know if you make films.
I don't know.
Once you get into that, you don't see as many films.
Yeah, that probably makes sense.
Like Anderson and I drove Anderson from Denver down to Colorado Springs, and we hung out. And he was like, "Oh, did you see this?" I'm like, "No, I haven't had time." It's just you're spending every weekend and nights, and when it doesn't pay you, you can't. You do it when you can, and then you give up all your other hobbies. My video game collection got dusty.
Yeah. My
books pile stacked up. All those things.
My video games playing has really been diminished too. Usually if it is, it's with the kids. They want me to play. Like after this, I think I'm going to go play something on the Switch. They want me to play with them. I'm like, okay, cool. That'll be fun. But I don't sit down and play like Skyrim or something, and be stuck for my life. But
every once in a while, I'll get a break and I will just plow through like one of those 100-hour games.
Right. Yeah.
I should be doing other things. Don't get me wrong, but the narrative is good enough to hold me, or the gameplay itself.
So did you get around? I know that they talked about this on Cinematics. Did you get around last year to see The Fanatic? Did you ever watch that?
No. Which
The Fanatic is the directed by can't think of his name now. All of a sudden, the one directed by Limp Bizkit dude, and it has John Travolta.
Fred Durst.
Yeah, Fred Durst.
I want to. It's in one of my queues somewhere. Was it bad?
Man, that is one of those that definitely is right in that category because it is weird and John Travolta is committed, and it is like it's It's something, I tell you. It's its own weird creature, and it's got some horror elements to it that are pretty stunning in how wrong they are done.
Right.
You know.
I'm an idiot. VFW. I
Oh
love
yeah,
VFW.
that was good.
I've seen it twice.
That was
You know,
Eric Holmes' suggestion was VFW, and we
oh
ended up.
no, no, no. He and I'm like, you got to see this movie. Look at the cast of this
Yeah,
movie.
yeah,
And it was, I don't even know how I came across it. I think I was watching YouTube like trailers for current horror movies or current movies. And somehow that came up and I went, holy cow, how have they not known about this movie?
yeah.
And that movie is a weird juxtaposition between really good acting and really bad acting.
Yeah,
Like,
but it's in that kind of Carpenter-esque universe, where
yes,
the acting isn't as important as the tone and the kind of the overall like thrust of that moment and that scene that they've got into that. It's just kind of that crunchy action.
yeah. And the other thing about it is I realized they were doing a huge cheat when they cut the lights because it's a way to save a whole lot of money because
Sure.
they didn't have to do as much with effects. They didn't, but man, I don't care. That movie was really fun.
It really was. It was a lot of fun. When we talked about that, we were talking about how it had that kind of throwback feel, which obviously, so that's an example. It's going for a throwback feel, but there's a genuineness to it. Like instead of it being like, I don't know, it's really hard to describe why one would work and one doesn't work. You know what I mean? But I could see that sort of movie being done wrong and being more of a Sharknado-ish type of thing.
And that's what I was worried about.
Yeah, right. But it seems like someone who genuinely likes that era of film and isn't trying to redo it exactly. It's just trying to get that tone,
Right. It's that new take that Carpenter took with Assault on Precinct 13 of a zombie pick, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's essentially what it is.
That's the most obvious comparison is Assault on Precinct 13 to me was when I saw that was that. And I was just even said this to Eric when I reviewed it because we were talking about all the guys that are in there, all the people like I know him from what, that kind of thing. Right. It's like if Rutger Hauer was alive, there's just no doubt he's in this movie.
100% thought the same exact thing, or maybe I heard you say it, but I went,
you might have.
Rutger belongs in this movie. There was somebody else that came up with like, how do they not put him in this? Obviously, when did Rutger die? 2 years ago?
It was really pretty recently. Yeah, for sure.
Sad day.
Because he was getting into things. He was doing movies now. Like he did that. What was it? The Hobo with a Shotgun. And, which
was he in that Rubber? No, he wasn't in Rubber, was he?
I don't think so. Was he in Turbo Kid? Who was in Turbo Kid? Somebody else was in Turbo Kid.
It looked like Rutger Hauer on the picture.
It was the other dude. It was Ironside, wasn't it? Was it Ironside?
Okay, yeah.
I think it was.
We just watched Starship Troopers. I'm exposing my children to as much as I can.
I was actually just considering watching that with my kids because we did Total Recall. Haven't done RoboCop yet, but I'm on the verge of doing RoboCop.
So I realized something. So I watched, and I am not getting into politics, but I watched Starship Troopers, which is really about fascism.
Obviously, yeah.
And then followed by Jaws, which is about government kind of saying, go out there, go. We don't care if you get, and I'm not saying anything political.
Oh, no, it's there.
And,
I mean, it's.
And then I can't remember what the other one was, but I was like, holy cow. Like, I can't believe this just occurred. And it wasn't on purpose.
True.
It might just be the movies I gravitate toward. I'm not sure.
I don't know. I mean, I think that there's that whole like gonzo / use of weird horror and sci-fi to get into political. I mean, even Night of the Living Dead, for God's sake, or I mean, all the racial stuff in the original Night of the Living Dead, and then of course all the societal like stuff in Dawn of the Dead, and so I mean, it's kind of it's great platforms to do it in a very subversive way and to really go over the top with whatever it is you want to discuss. Whereas you do it in something like, I don't know, Big Chill.
Right. Yeah. That's punching you in the face with it, right? It's not subtle. It's just not.
Well, it's weird. Big Chill is less subtle the dawn of the day. You know what I mean? Which you wouldn't think that would be the case, but it's because you couch it in this great lurid
That layer.
clothing.
It's that
Yeah.
layers. And I find myself when the movie tells me what I'm supposed to think, not so good. But if I can watch a movie at this level, this top level, and go, man, that was enjoyable, and I watch it again, oh, wait a minute. And then I watch it the third time, and then go, okay. Now, I'm a little slow, so sometimes it takes me a little bit to get what the filmmaker's saying.
Right.
Sometimes it's pretty obvious. But, a movie like The Platform, which I enjoyed, is very heavy-handed.
Yeah, true. I mean, it's right in the middle somewhere. It's good at it, but it also is like, okay, the metaphor is so obvious that you kind of give it a point off for that. Whereas it could have been in more interesting. Whereas I think like something like Blue Velvet. For me, Blue Velvet was like the best movie about the 80s I ever saw. Because Blue Velvet was, but if you watched it, it was like, this is this fucked up movie about this creepy pervy guy with a mask and what's going on here, and it's all trippy and blah blah blah. It's like, no, but it's really just about 80s America,
Right. David Lynch and I have a weird relationship.
I think he has a weird relationship with everybody.
Where I'm like, I keep watching his stuff and I keep wanting to love it and I keep not loving it, but I get what he's doing.
Yeah.
And
I'm in the same boat. I will go up and down. Like I'll get something like Elephant Man. I love it. Eraserhead, like it a lot. Blue Velvet, like it a lot. Wild at Heart, people love. I don't love Wild at Heart.
Right.
Lost Highway.
Right.
Lost Highway. I'm like, isn't
right.
too much for me. So I'm right with you on that. But I love the fact that he is doing his thing and he's doing it genuinely. He is not. Right. He said from Dune on. He said, fuck the studio system. This is what I'm going to do. 100%. Like it or love it. I'm doing it my own way. It's crazy. It's really, really pretentious, but I'm also going to pull it off. And every so often he'll do a straight story to say, look, I can do this shit if you want me to, but I'm not going to do it.
That writer for Straight Story, and his name is escaping me, and I had a drink in the last couple of weeks. He lives here. He's from Madison. Interesting stories behind that. And it was shocking to him that he made that movie, Straight Story.
That David Lynch did?
Yes. He was shocked. I mean, it's just, anyway, tangentially.
But wasn't Straight Story, wasn't it almost like I want to say it was almost like just to prove a point? Like,
it might have been, but like the writer took it like this. The guy, I should really have his name right here, but I don't. His friend approached him about writing the story about the guy because it's a true story.
Right. The driving across with the lawnmower and all that stuff.
And they just handed it to Lynch because one of the writers was good friends with him and said, can you give us some feedback? And he just called him and said, I'm doing this film. Or I want to do this film. Called him to dinner. And that was it. And he did it. And it feels like it's just like when he did Elephant Man, though. I think you're probably right. Like he can make a straight movie if we need him to make a mainstream movie. That's probably a better option.
Right.
But yeah, I don't think I kind of stress this a lot with some people I know is knowing the rules is important.
Right.
Because you can't go outside the rules without knowing the rules, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, well, that's the classic Picasso thing, right? If you look,
I have no idea.
So if you look up Picasso, I mean, everyone knows Picasso as, sideways face,
right?
Crazy. But if you look up Picasso's early work, blue period, pink period, all this kind of stuff, it's classical representational art. And his whole point was that he could do that shit. And every time I want to say like, oh, a monkey could make a Picasso or whatever, that kind of that old like standard like response to it. It's like, no, he can do this shit better than you can. But he is knowing that doing this. So it's the difference of just producing something because you think it's easy and producing it because you know the difference. Right. So, and I always like too the idea of kind of trying to go back to that simplicity of childlike art too, like being able to tap into that. I think that's one of the things I like about horror and sci-fi and some of those things when they're done really well and like trashy stuff is there's a simplicity. There's like a real rough truth to it. It's not all prettied up. It's not all made to look all like, look how fancy I am because I have this beautiful swooping shot, which I can get sucked into that stuff too.
Right.
But sometimes you just strip that away and you give us a Night of the Living Dead, or you give us an Evil Dead, the original Evil Dead that's made for whatever was it, like $100,000 or something.
Wasn't it three?
I have no idea.
They picked up a phone book and started calling people.
Yeah.
It's an amazing story.
They get like doctors to like give them money for it and stuff. And you strap a freaking, camera to a board and you run through the woods. But you have that energy and that creativity, and you have something to say, and it actually has a hell of a lot of style. I'm always struck when I go back and watch because everyone thinks that Evil Dead 2 is kind of like when they really hit it, and it's awesome, and it's all weird, and it is.
But it's probably my favorite of the trilogy as far as the movies.
Yeah, and most people it is, but I'm always struck when I go back and watch the first Evil Dead, how good it is. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is good, it looks good, and it is actually still weirdly intense in some of the spots. And that's the kind of thing that you can do, I think, in like horror and stuff that you can't always get away with on a little indie drama or something,
It's interesting to watch all those directors that I'm sure that you're into at one point, Sam Raimi, Peter Jackson, and now what they're doing. Well, Sam Raimi's not really making movies anymore, which makes me sad.
Yeah, this is true.
He's just producing, and Peter Jackson, I don't know what happened to him. I miss him.
Yeah,
he's probably still out there. I know he's out there. I didn't watch Mortal Engines. I just can't.
I did because I got it for free from Greg.
See?
But it's one of those movies that you can see. Well, you can see that it's based on something that's bigger, and it all got jammed into this one. Someone told them they didn't have the money, or they were going to make it all into one movie, and it just feels like 5 stories all jammed into one, and it's all a bunch of interesting ideas that never really kind of come to fruition.
And I feel like, he did not sell out. He probably wanted to make these large scale movies. I wasn't happy. I knew he wanted to make King Kong for years. So I went and saw it, and I thought, you need an editor. And I thought the same thing when he was with the last two in the trilogy, the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It's like, you need an editor. Somebody that's going to show you got to trim some of it. But what the hell do I know? I'm just some punk 20-year-old back then, just kind of.
I still think he had a little bit of energy back then, though. He still had some energy, even though it was like giant and big and bloated and all of those effects. You still could kind of feel his energy there. It wasn't, Dead Alive era, or I guess Brain Dead, but what is?
You've seen Meet the Feebles, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've seen Meet the Feebles a few times.
Oh, a few times? Once is enough.
It's not. You got to get all the subtleties. The subtleties of vomiting AIDS-riddled rabbits and flies eating shit out of the toilet.
That's the scene, or the anteater scene. Never has left my head, and I haven't seen it in years. I saw it on VHS the last time I saw it.
Or Bad Taste. You got to go back to see all the vomiting.
Bad Taste I can watch again. Like, I can watch Bad Taste every day of the week. I have that collector's DVD. I know it's on streaming. I still love that movie. And I love that movie for the story around that movie as well. Like, he was working. This is his weekend warrior type stuff. And it takes a couple of years, and he gets there, and it takes time, and he gets out there. And he becomes what he wants to become. And those are probably the guys that I really, really admire. I'm not saying that somebody going through the normal system, going to USC and getting out there, is not somebody I admire. But I like the people that have done it from the ground up, outside the norms, and gotten to where they are today by just sheer force of will. And I'm not saying people that go through the system don't have to do that, because they do. It's a little bit harder coming from, I think, the independent world and jumping to one of the best in the world.
Well, I think most of those ones you're mentioning, I agree. I think most of the ones you're mentioning, it's a different era of filmmaker. Yeah. I mean, I don't know your age. I'm mid-50s.
I'm Eric's age, so you're a couple of years on me. I feel like I'm 50 though. So,
but I mean, like, I am a teenager in the 80s, and that's the time when I'm into punk rock. All this underground crazy stuff's going on. The best stuff in the 80s is going on underground. It's not the new wave and all the stuff you're seeing on MTV. And I think that a lot of those filmmakers you're talking about are right out of that ethos. I mean, instead of making underground music, they're making underground films. And you get your Gordons and your Raimis. You've even got stuff going on in Japan. You get like Tetsuo Iron Man coming out. You just get weird stuff coming. I don't know what's going on in Europe other than maybe Argento's doing stuff. But he's kind of a big deal by then.
But in the 80s, yeah, for sure.
He's already kind of made his deal. Yeah, maybe got some Lucio Fulci still doing his thing, but he's
he was dead in 87.
Yeah, something like that.
By the way, that movie's fantastic. That's a trash movie. I love Zombie.
Zombie? Oh yeah, the one by Fulci. Yeah,
Fulci. I know I've switched gears, but that was going to be Dawn of the Dead 2. And yeah, it
was Dawn of the Dead 2 in Europe, or was it Zombie? I think Dawn of the Dead. I think Dawn of the Dead was called Zombie.
I think you're right, and then it did something bananas. And I think their plan was for Argento to actually do that script, and it ended up in Fulci's lap. And I don't know. Something about that movie really has excited me over the years, and is
that the one that has the shark zombie fight?
Oh yeah.
Yes. And I know infamously it has the eyeball trauma, but that's his whole thing. He's got eyeball trauma and everything.
The new 4K cut, and I've been buying DVDs. I haven't collected a DVD or Blu-ray ever, DVD way back when, and I have been buying 4K prints and transfers, and the Zombie one just came out. Maybe it's in the last year, and that's a fantastic cut with the uncut footage of that eyeball trauma.
Oh, I don't think I've ever seen that.
It was one of those rare things, and it's just a little more excessive. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's pretty good already. That's funny. That's good. You think about Fulci. I mean, I've never been a huge Fulci guy, but I do respect his kind of eyeballs to the wild style. But I remember, like, when I got this is an example of kind of where my head was at. When I finally got my driver's license, the first place I did is I went to the drive-in and I went and saw Gates of Hell, which I think they named it something else, but Lucio Fulci's Gates of Hell. Yeah. Which once again, I don't think it has eyeball trauma, but it infamously has. There's a scene in the car where the woman like throws up her own intestines, and
I don't think I've seen Gates of Hell,
and it also has a guy get a drill through his head. But I mean, I think that scene also, if I remember correctly, and this could be one of those like just legends, but that they made her swallow a bunch of sheep guts and then puke them up.
That sounds like 80s
I totally believe them doing that kind of thing. It might be true. I'll have to look this up. But I mean, it was definitely one of those, like, because I got Fangoria magazine back in those days. And like, I got to see this. So, yeah.
It's funny, like, I grew up, I'm a little bit younger than you, but my experience with film is the video store.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Going to the video store. And then, like, I lived in the video store, and they bought the cheap stuff, which was all these movies we're talking about. Sure. And just... and I miss the video store. Of course I do. But, I mean, we get the same thing at Netflix. It just doesn't feel the same. So, therefore, it's, a little different.
You'd have to scan through the boxes, and you'd end up getting horrible movies most of the time. But every so often, you come across that weird one. And I remember seeing Bad Taste up there and finally picking out Bad Taste.
How can you not remember seeing that alien giving you the bird?
Yeah, and you're just like, and I keep looking at it and go like, what the fuck is this movie? Yeah. And then I watched it and I was like, okay, this is insane and I like it.
I saw it after I saw Dead Alive.
So yeah, I saw it before. By the time Dead Alive came out, that was on my radar. So I went and I searched that out because I knew what he was. But Meet the Feebles had been like never released in America, and it kind of came out later, like came out later, even though it was between the two. So
right. I saw Dead Alive and went, wow, I got to look for some of this guy's stuff. Mm-hmm. And then realized, oh wow, this is one of his movies, and then I had to watch it. And it's cheaper, but it's got heart. It's got heart. How do we not think of that term? That's what these movies have that we're talking about. They have heart. Like, they're not soulless and not a money grab. Some of them, of course, are that we've talked about. Like Silent and Deadly Night 2 is a giant money grab, because if you read that story, like, first of all, 45 minutes of the movie is just clips from the first.
Redoing the first movie. Yeah, that's always a bad sign.
I sat through it and I was like, what is going on? Is this just a clip movie? And then I looked it up. I said, oh, they originally, that's all they wanted was just a recut of the first one. And
yeah.
Anyway, it's fantastic stuff. Fantastic.
Yeah, some of those things back then, and especially in the 80s, that was kind of a prime time for all that weird, cheesy shit coming out.
Canon, in particular, Canon World.
Canon. I haven't watched that documentary. I should need to. There's a documentary.
Electric Boogaloo 2 or whatever it is. Electric Boogaloo. Oh, it's so good.
I need to watch that.
It's so... Right? I hope you didn't hear that.
Was that your...
My Alexa just took off when I said that. I don't know why.
I have that happen sometimes.
I probably just ordered it, the actual Breakin' 2 movie. I hope not. I'll let you know if it shows up on my doorstep in the next 2 days.
Instead, you'll get Crushed Groove. Oh, no, I got Crushed Groove. Why?
Sorry. And, yeah,
I'm Last Dragon.
Exactly. Something
somewhat good.
I did work through, speaking of other track, I know we just keep rambling here. The Ninja series they made. What is it? Enter the Ninja?
I don't know if I've seen that series. See, and I was talking to Eric about this. Some of the action / martial arts stuff is so out of my, like, I take his advice on those things because that was really out of my wheelhouse and I never kind of went down that road much. So
he's the one that alerted me to it being a trilogy. I didn't know.
Yeah, he knows that stuff. I don't know that stuff.
I was like, what? And so I went and watched all 3. And then the actor who was in Gymkata, which is another movie I remember from the 80s very well.
Gymkata is weird.
He just passed away this last week and I was like, man, I wonder if that means we'll get a revival of that film. But
the ending stuff in Chikata is just bizarro. The whole thing is, but I mean,
he was a gold medalist Olympian, and so they just decided to cash in.
Yeah,
you got to do what you got to do to make money. And it's funny because what we talked about in the beginning was it was people trying to cash in on bad film to make money, and that's what Canon was. But for some reason, I have given it a pass because that is what that entire studio – I mean, that's what all studios are, let's be honest. But
I think what we were talking about that you don't like as much, though, and to tell me if I'm wrong, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think the difference is they're doing it – if you're doing genuinely B movies of that time, you're going to get some gems out of that, whereas it's more like the people are trying to go back and capture that from before, where it really has that – fake nostalgia or something attached to it.
Yeah, that could be it. Yeah, so you should check out the first one, Enter the Ninja, on YouTube, just for the death scenes.
YouTube, yeah.
Don't watch the whole movie. Just, I'm sure you'll look up the worst death scenes of all time. It's one of the ones that shows up. And anyway, yeah, very, very enjoyable stuff.
Like the story of Ricky O for the death scenes.
It's
Ricky, the story of Ricky O.
The guy's just like, he gets hit with the throwing star and goes, and falls over. And he's the main bad guy. I'm like,
really?
Not joking. Not exaggerating. That whole trilogy was, the second one was probably the best, but they are all trash.
Nice.
All trash. And it's like a good trash if you're in the right mood.
Right. Which I can be in that mood for sure. So I'm good for that. So you think that's probably a good point to start wrapping it up. We've talked for a while, but this, for the people who are into our kind of stuff, this should be fun because they're going to be a lot of stuff. Plus, I'm going to have a ton of little posters to put in here and all kinds of pictures because I love to do that too.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed it. And we're not talking about it, but in the future, you might be back for our creator series to talk about some creative endeavors that you might be working on that are super secret.
I don't know if Eric's talking about. Yeah, I'd like to keep it on the DL for now. There are other things. I have a lot of stuff in post because post is definitely the fall down for post production is definitely the fall down for independent film. It's a lot slower than it normally is because to find reliable editors, to find reliable sound production designers, all those things slow the process down. And I've got 3 that I've produced, a music video, which is sitting in limbo. I have a video, I have stuff out to Eric that hasn't gotten to him yet that I need edited. But yeah, I will always have things to plug in the future. But this is what I want to plug in. It's all white. Sorry, I don't do the 3-ring binder, or the regular gold. Anyway, but yes, thank you very much. I enjoyed being on.
Yeah, it was fun for sure. I knew. Well, Eric knows. He kind of knows what I'm all about, and he knows you, and he knows that we would just go off. I mean, I get the feeling that if you were hanging out with me, we would just end up watching stupid movies all night, and it would be fun. And eventually my wife would say, like, stop, I need you to take care of your family.
So I'm on my second wife, and she respects. I made better selection choices. She doesn't like my movies. She just deals with my movies.
Oh, yeah. We don't even try to watch some of the movies together. I'm just like, hey, you know what I just watched? And she'll be like, yeah, what was it? Oh, it was the Psycho. Like, that thing I was just telling you about, that Psycho. I forget the name of it. I can't remember the name of it.
Oh, I should have recall, but I don't. Psychomania?
Psychomania, yeah. Look into it.
I will.
The worst early 70s biker gang / supernatural / yeah.
Biker gang? Okay, all right. I'm definitely in. Wait,
let's put it this way. At some point, somebody gets buried on their bike, sitting on their bike in the grave.
It's in my queue. It showed up streaming recently, right?
It's on Amazon, I believe.
Yeah. I have it in my queue. I definitely, now that you've said what it was, I went, oh yeah, it's like number 3 on my queue. Because
you get about a half an hour into it, you'll be like, this is genuinely bad awesomeness. It's definitely good cheese.
No, just because it's in my queue doesn't mean it'll ever get watched.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I enjoyed it quite a bit, and we will definitely have to talk again soon. And who knows, maybe we'll end up on movie Mainline one of these days with the whole group, because we sometimes have an open spot, and I know Eric will just invite people in. So.
Right. That sounds about like Eric.
All right. Take care. Thank you again.
Thank you.